Cool. We are live. Hello, everybody watching in the present or in the future. You'll notice Elon, am here, but Brian is not here. He's been replaced just for this episode with one of a great friend of the show, Steve Laidlaw. Hey, Steve. This isn't my a full official intro. This is just a video intro. But thanks for coming on. I love the
Yeah,
background.
absolutely. It's my pleasure. I'm my own favorite pinch hitter.
I remember. I don't. I should have gone back and listened. I remember you had a lot of good answers on the last time you were on. Of I'd be asking you about a player, then you'd be like, you know what it's like when you're eating peanut butter, and it's I don't know. You'd have some real non sequitur, and they'd be like, that's what that trade was like. So I'm looking forward
I
to seeing
I
what's gonna be.
I may have a few more analogies. It's funny. A few of my friends are big fans of the pod, so whenever I pop on, they're just like, oh my god, I couldn't believe that analogy. And so yeah, it all comes full
Yeah,
circle.
you always keep me on my toes here. I guess I'm not sure. Yeah, let's just get started, I guess. And then if anyone wants to pop in at any point, I got some cool little. Oh, this StreamYard thing is pretty neat. I could put people's comments up on the screen, like my hello here.
Oh, that is cool.
So if someone writes something really smart, I'll throw it up. But okay, let's just. Oh, I guess I didn't even ask you how long you have. I'll try to keep it within a time limit. What are you thinking of?
Like a couple hours is more
Oh,
than
okay,
fair
yeah,
game.
definitely we won't
So
go over. Yeah, we won't go over
yeah.
2 hours. Awesome. All right, so I'll just get started. Okay, so 1 sec here. Recording there. I'm also doing StreamYard's doing a local recording for me, and I've got my own local recording, so I think we should be covered. I don't think anything could go. We're not going to lose this one, which is a key to podcasting, as you know. Have you ever recorded a podcast and then lost the audio before you were able to publish it?
I've lost it and just had really poor quality and had
Mm.
to redo it, and yeah, there's lots that can go wrong. So
Yeah, this will be good. All right, I'll just go into it. Yeah! Yes! Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest-running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by a guy who probably has more leverage with his baby when I'm trying to convince her to go to sleep than the Sens had when shopping Vladimir Tarasenko. I'm your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and with me this week, Brian is out of town, so I've got a pinch hitter in here, a really fun guest of the show. We've had him on a bunch of times. It's always a blast. He was formerly with Dobber Hockey. He does fantasy hockey projections every year. He's a freaking firefighter. It's Steve Laidlaw. Welcome back to the show, Steve.
oh, thanks so much, Elon. Yeah, I'm my own favorite pinch hitter, so I always like an opportunity to pick up the bat.
Yeah, well, let's see if you. What do you think? Are you more of a pinch hitter or a pinch runner if you had to pick one of those designations?
Oh gosh, it would have to be a pinch runner because in my illustrious softball career, I have one outside the park home run, and I have more than my fair share of inside the park home runs. All speed, no power.
Hey, I mean, worked for Ricky Henderson. Or no, he was speed and power. I don't even. I shouldn't expose my lack of baseball knowledge. I just know he stole a lot of bases back in
Okay,
the day.
we'll keep it on the ice then.
Okay, so yeah, we've got obviously a really fun show today because the trade deadline happened. I think probably most people listening are aware of that. We had a really fun short shifts episode that Shams and Jeremy dropped on Thursday, breaking down a lot of the trades. But now we've got the full set. We know exactly who is where going into this year's playoffs, and Steve and I are going to look specifically at the fantasy implications of all of these trades, which players benefit, which players are maybe hurt by this, what you need to do for your fantasy team if you have one of these players who's moved, or maybe just a teammate of someone who's moved. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I'm really excited to hear your takes. Of course, we're presented by dobberhockey.com. Check that site out. Obviously, on that site, they have articles for every single trade. It's really fun because, the people who write those articles are always listing their opinions of which players' value went up and down. So I really enjoy all of those every year at the trade deadline. So check it out, dobberhockey.com. But okay, Steve, let's get into it. I came up with an order, somewhat in order of I think most to least impact, obviously, but also trying to sort of connect things as we go. So we'll
Would you
see
call it a
what you
batting
think.
order?
Yeah, I guess so. Here's the batting order. I think lead off, we're gonna go with a couple speedy players. I believe. How about this big trade that went down 1-for-1 between Colorado and Buffalo, Bowen Byram for Casey Middlestat? I want to start on the Buffalo side. Bowen Byram gets traded to a team that already has Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power, coming from a team that already had Cale Makar and Devon Taves. So, I know that Jeremy and Shams are sort of saying that he kind of still ends up in a similar situation of Byram. He's not the main guy, so how much value can you really have? Of course, what we didn't expect, or maybe you expected, Steve, but Byram has actually been playing on the top power play in his first couple of games. They've been going 3 forwards and 2 defensemen. In this last game against the Oilers that the Sabres won, they were rolling Thompson, Tuck, Cousins, and then Dahlin and Byram on that PP1. And Bowen Byram has had himself a couple really good games. First of all, huge minutes, 25 minutes. 25 minutes plus actually in the second game, almost 25 minutes in the first game. He had a goal and an assist versus Nashville. He no points versus Edmonton, but 4 shots and 4 hits. So is it fair to say that Bowen Byram, who was kind of a snoozer for a lot of the season, not someone really worth holding in fantasy, now all of a sudden has a lot of increased value if he holds this top power play and this ice time in Buffalo?
So there's a couple of things. The first being that the Sabres power play is terrible. So I'm pretty sure they're just throwing crap at the wall and seeing what sticks with Byram on PP1. And it's worth mentioning he has 0 power play points this season. So his next power play point will be his first one. Yeah, not sure we're going to get too much help there. And you already kind of set it up. So I think that defensemen are it's kind of like going out to dinner. Like typically there's room for one good entree.
Okay.
Sometimes you can get 2. You dabble. You do a little surf and turf, like the Canucks. They've got Hughes and Hronek, surf and turf. A couple of valuable defensemen. You start. There's no room for spaghetti with surf and turf. Like you can't have a third entree, and that's kind of like how defensemen operate. You can have some awesome appetizers. You throw in someone who can stuff the stats. But in terms of pure point production, Power and Dahlin are locked in at 20 million. So as far as I'm concerned, Byram has gone from one spaghetti situation to another.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to follow along. Obviously, top power play is good, but like you're saying, we'll see if that lasts. Let's see if he gets that first power play point of the season. Since we're here in Buffalo, we had a funny question here on our Discord, the Keeping Karlsson patron Discord, just in case it's not already on the docket for the upcoming episode. From Brandon: Are the Sabres doing a weekend at Bernie's with Jeff Skinner? Why don't they just put this man on the IR? Yeah. Like, I don't know if you have any inside info on if like Skinner is injured or not, but if people were listening carefully, you may have noticed that when I listed the people on that top power play in the last couple of games, Jeff Skinner was not there. Skinner was on PP2, and Skinner has been off the Tage Thompson line. In the last game versus the Oilers, Skinner's most common line mates were Krebs and Peterka. And of course, along with his bad deployment is a really bad stat line, pointless in his last 3. Generally he's like well below half point per game if you go back to like the beginning of January, pretty much, or say January 23rd when he came back from his injury. So yeah, I'd be curious, like if you're going into like a fantasy playoffs situation and you've got Skinner on your team, like is he a guy that you just have to hold no matter what, or would you consider maybe letting Skinner go if he's not picking things up and his deployment stays like this?
Oh, he's been a snoozer for me all year. And you look at the last couple of games, he's been like 4th line playing 10 minutes. Like, no, you're gone. Like he's always been empty calories anyway. So if you're playing in a league with any kind of bash or anything like that, then he hasn't been very valuable. And he's one of those guys who, like, how we're getting close to the fantasy playoffs, and there's lots of people who they may just be rediscovering these fantasy teams that they have. That's most of the people who have Jeff Skinner still on their fantasy rosters.
Probably the people who have Skinner on their rosters either have like an amazing team, so much so that they were able to just be like, I'll just wait on Skinner. It doesn't matter. I'm going to come in first anyways. Or they have like a terrible team and they haven't been paying attention and they have no chance of making the playoffs. Those are probably the two type. If you're a middling team and you still have Skinner and you didn't just pick him up as a free agent recently, then yeah, maybe you haven't been paying full attention. Or yeah, you could maybe find someone better on the wire. And we'll talk about a lot of players potentially that might be available to you that might have better situations now.
Yeah, you just described a boat anchor.
Okay. Well, he used to be so good. It's too
He
bad. Like,
was so good last year. That whole team was phenomenal, and I think they tried to start being a serious team, and that has backfired because there's nothing serious about them.
yeah, Brian and I have already discussed at length how annoyed I am at Tage Thompson. I don't want to dive into that, but I drafted him way too high and won't happen again. Okay, so let's switch to the Colorado side of this trade. And Colorado's got a whole new look here. You know, they've got Byram out, but they've got Middlestat, who I just mentioned. They also traded for Sean Walker. They traded for Yakov Trenin, Brandon Duhaime. Also, probably bigger than all of these guys is Nichushkin finally returning from his stint in the player assistance program. So if you just take a look at Colorado's lines in their last game against Minnesota, they were rolling with Rantanen, McKinnon, and Lehkonen as the top line. Lehkonen so far sticks top line and top power play, so that's good. I saw he's ill. He's got a flag on Yahoo, but just illness, so nothing, no big deal. Then Nichushkin slotted in with Middlestat and Drouin on the second line. So there's our top six. And then, yeah, I mentioned the top power play. Oh, yeah, so it was Drouin, Lehkonen, McKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar. So Nichushkin not on the top power play. He was so great on the top power play before he, left the team for a bit. And Nichushkin, hey, even though he wasn't on the top power play, he still got his in his first game back. He scored a goal against Minnesota, took a couple shots. I wonder if that's maybe still an easing in. He only played 17 minutes and 48 seconds when he was well above 20 minutes a game for the majority of the time before he left. So is this the kind of thing where we're concerned about Nichushkin, or do you think it's like I said, like easing in, don't read anything into the deployment for this first game? We'll need a few games to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, I think because everything revolves around Makar, McKinnon, and Rantanen, and
Yeah.
everything else is kind of interchangeable after that. So I wonder if them actually adding some real depth, getting some genuine players, is going to is that going to lessen the burden that Rantanen and McKinnon have been carrying, because those guys are playing like historic amounts for forwards. And McKinnon's kind of like, he gets hurt a lot. Like, he's not necessarily the best health bet. So counting on him for this burden, and then they're going to need him for whatever playoff aspirations they have. So I wonder if this allows them to ease up on things. Like, I don't know, their last game, he played 25 minutes, and that's after getting Shushkin back and all these additions. It was an overtime game, but regardless, he's still playing crazy minutes. So, yeah, that's the biggest impact I could see. Otherwise, I see like Nichushkin, Middlestat, like these guys are going to be rotating through, even some Ross Colton, along with the guys you mentioned that are currently on the top power play, Lehkonen and Drouin. Like, I don't think any of those players are stable outside of the 3 tentpoles that they have.
Right, I see. I mean, Nichushkin seemed like a tent pole before he left. Like, he was, in terms of fantasy, anyways, he was insane, going on such an amazing run. I think if you look at his stats, like in general, the streak they show on Frozen Tools is 22 points in his last 16 games now for Nichushkin after that goal. But like you say, obviously in real life, he's an important part of the team. But yeah, maybe they don't need him on the top power play. Like, they could just figure out sort of what works out best for them to spread things around, maybe like ease the load on some people. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. I wouldn't read too much into just that first game lines. Like, and also with all these new players, maybe there's some time for people to ease in, though. At the same time, Colorado won their game. Maybe they'll at least keep things the same for the next game. And then as far as Casey Middlestat goes, he's having a great year, right? He's like up to like a over 60-point pace, 47 points in 63 games now. Went pointless in his first game in Colorado, only one shot. Like I said, not top power play. I mean, Colorado's a team that scores a lot of games, but I think I'm with you that he's like not going to be a core piece. And if I had to do like thumbs up or thumbs down to Middlestat's fantasy value, I'm imagining now it's probably down. Would you concur?
Yeah, like his usage is way down. So, like, sometimes it's better to be the toughest guy in a small town than just like another guy in a big town.
Yeah. I remember when I graduated undergrad, I had, oh, this is going to come off like a brag. But okay, anyways, I had really high grades in my school, but I went to like a school that wasn't like, one of the main schools. And then I went to grad school and I thought I was like so smart because I was so used to getting like among the highest grades. And then like it was a real shocker to all of a sudden realize like, oh, I'm average at best, maybe below. And yeah, I wonder if that's the experience that Middlestat might have over in Colorado. But hey, if he could go on a long playoff run, I'm sure he's not going to
Well,
complain.
that's like a Malcolm Gladwell outliers thing. Like, go to a small school and be the superstar and get way more attention from the teachers rather
Right.
than go and just be another number in like some 1,000-person class as an undergrad.
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine went to Waterloo and he was like always complaining about how hard it was. And we were like basically like similar in high school. And I remember being like, oh, I finished all my work and I'm like playing video games right now and I'm getting great grades. So sorry for you. But okay, so I guess the other thing I'll just mention about Colorado, I don't think there's much to say about it, but Eustace Anunin riding 2 straight shutouts. They were both against Chicago. So I don't know how much you want to read into it, though. Hey, Arizona's scoring some goals against or Chicago scored some goals against Arizona today, so it's not as if the team doesn't know how to score at all. So Colorado plays Tuesday and Wednesday next week, so Anunin will get another game then. Probably a good stream, but the fact that they went back to Georgiev for like the next 2 games, even though Anunin has a 2-game shutout streak, I think tells us all we need to know about their plans in net moving forward. I don't think it matters what Anunin does. I think Georgiev is clearly the volume guy.
No, but he'll get games, and if they're like actually have more than one line, then he can be a legit contributor for you. I still think like if you're riding a backup, probably Anthony Stolars is like your number one
Mm.
option, but a Noonan, not a bad option.
Yeah, I feel like I wonder if these 2 games were the difference in Colorado not trading for a goalie at the deadline. Because for a while it was looking like Anunin and Prosvetov were both like not cutting it, and maybe they would
No,
be like putting all their eggs in one basket. But maybe now they feel okay
no one's ever made crazy franchise altering decisions based on
on
a
two
couple of
games.
games.
We'll see. All right, so
That's never happened.
that's trade number 1. We talked for around 15 minutes, so we'll see how this show goes. Next up, I guess we got to talk about the big Jake Gensel trade. Unfortunately, we don't get an immediate impact because Gensel's still injured for a little while, but he was moved from Pittsburgh to Carolina, 25% retention. Ty Smith also went to Carolina for Michael Bunting and some prospects in a first. Carolina also picked up Kuznetsov at 50% retention from the Caps. So yeah, like I said, we're still waiting on Gensel. In Carolina's game today, they just destroyed the Calgary Flames. So let me look. I had in my prep notes here, I have Carolina's lines from the last game. I might as well give you the total up-to-date stuff here. Kuznetsov was playing on a line with Nason and Nichas, and also Kuznetsov was still on the top power play with Aho, Svechnikov, and Jarvis. Like, so Kuznetsov, someone who was left for dead after coming back from the player assistance program in Washington. He was sent to the minors. Now all of a sudden he gets into a pretty good spot, though he's played 2 games for Carolina and has no points and only 3 shots. So, and
So
also
can
I'd
we talk
imagine.
about Kuznetsov?
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm going to throw to you. I was just going to say quickly that probably this top power play you shouldn't get too excited about because I'd imagine that's just keeping the seat warm for Gensel whenever he comes back.
So do they
So
have
please go for it.
pianos in Carolina? And
Uh,
is Kuznetsov like are they going to ask him to carry it or play it?
I don't. I might be missing a reference here that I might
Do
need
you
to get you to
remember
explain.
the leaked Russian report from this past summer where he was complaining about the old coaching staff in Washington, where it was like
Oh,
I won't do the crazy Russian accent, otherwise I'd just be parroting John Malkovich and Rounders, but yeah, he was like talking about like the coach, they want you to carry the piano and then sometimes they ask you to play it, and it's just like, so is he going to be carrying pianos or playing it? Like that's what I want to know with Kuznetsov.
yeah, I remember him saying something along the lines of like, "You're paying me lots of money, just let me do the thing that like you're paying me for." And I guess the coaches were asking him to do something differently. I don't recall this piano phrase. I need to go back and get the exact quote there. But anyways, I'll just say that I think you concur. Not too much interest in Kuznetsov, even on the top power play. Maybe he could pop. If you get a good schedule before Gensel comes back, maybe you could get a power play point if your league counts that.
Well, I think we're going to find something out here about Kuznetsov because we just found it out about Ryan Johansson, who's the same age and same draft class as Kuznetsov. And what we found out about Ryan Johansson going to a serious contender is that he's cooked. He's done. And we might find out the same about Kuznetsov. But I think that like the size and depth of a league that you're going to take a chance on him is like no smaller than a 16 teamer. So it's got to be a pretty deep league for you to be
Yeah.
taking the swing at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And what do you think about Gensel? I guess it's early. We assume he's going to get top deployment and top power play, but there's a lot of players that could potentially take those spots in Carolina compared to in Pittsburgh, where he was pretty much the second guy with Crosby. Like, do you think this is going to end up being good or bad for people who have Gensel on their fantasy teams when he comes back?
Well, I'm optimistic because Carolina's power play is actually good and Pittsburgh's was strangely awful. So like it could be a boost. And because Carolina like has such strong metrics and such play, like good play driving, but they don't have a finisher, like this could be genuinely explosive for him, especially if he's healthy. But like, are we even getting him back for the fantasy playoffs? Like if you need him for round one, is he going to be there? I don't know that he is.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll have to just watch and see. And in the meantime, Carolina's doing fine. They won 7-2 today. And that top line, I don't see why they'd be breaking that up anytime soon. Aho had a 3-point game. Teravainen 1 goal, 1 assist. Svechnikov 1 goal, 2 assists. So maybe they keep them together and Gensel plays with someone else. We know how Carolina goes. They change the lines every game anyway. One last thing on Carolina before I switch over to Pittsburgh. How about Frederik Andersen? He's back looking really good. So are all the goalies. Like Spencer Martin has been good. Kochetkov had a good game yesterday. Really makes it tricky for fantasy. They have 3 good goalies, and it almost makes it like, do you want any of them on your fantasy team? Like Frederik Andersen has come back and has had a couple really good games, but are they? I mean, he's come back from an injury. Like why? And if they have like all these other options, why would they, risk injuring him by playing him too much? So I just wonder if even though they're all doing great and Carolina's a great team, you just kind of don't have any interest in holding any of these goalies outside of just a stream now and then.
Well, first thing, Antti Ranta.
Oh, I forgot about him too. Okay, yeah, he's there too.
So there's that. But otherwise, I'm all in on the Kochetkov Anderson tandem. These guys have a cream puff schedule going down the stretch, and they have enough back-to-backs. Those guys are going to play. And the flip side of them not wanting Anderson to get hurt, like the dude had a clotting issue. That was a health thing. They need to get him up to speed and ready for the playoffs because he's their number one. So they are going to give him minutes, but he's not going to play back-to-backs. Kochetkov is still going to be an option for them. I think these guys could go on an absolute tear and be the type of league tilting goalie tandem that you need for your fantasy playoffs. And like in one of my leagues, I was able to just scoop Anderson off the waiver wire. Like this guy is out there and available. And Kochetkov, you probably aren't getting him in the same manner, but if you can still trade and you need to marry up that tandem so that you've got it, like I am willing to wager a lot that that's going to be a valuable tandem because that's what I'm doing in my leagues.
Hey, and I love Carolina has a schedule next week of like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So I think a good move is if like one of these Carolina goalies is available in free agency, like Anderson or Kochetkov, you could like wait, and then if one of them gets announced to play like on the Tuesday, then you can grab them knowing you're getting 2 games because they're going to alternate them for the Saturday, Sunday. So you could like kind of wait and see who gets that Tuesday game and jump on that person. Though there is Spencer Martin. I kind of feel bad for him, who's been like incredible in every start. And now I guess we'll see if he gets any games. Maybe he will. Maybe that actually ruins my strategy where I'll be like, oh, Kochekov's getting Tuesday, grab him. And then it turns out it goes Anderson, Martin for the rest of the week. So I guess no guarantees.
I don't think we're seeing Martin until Carolina's playoff, like until their seed is locked up. Like it's Kochetkov, Anderson.
Yeah, they probably just want Martin there just in case. Anderson obviously is a bit injury prone, so want to have a backup in case something goes wrong. But yeah, you're probably right. Okay, let's switch over to Pittsburgh now. They stink. I don't know what happened here, but this team is all of a sudden like just completely derailing. So yeah, they've traded Gensel, but he was already out of the lineup for a while. But yeah, they just lost today 4-0 to Edmonton, lost to Boston yesterday 5-1. Thursday they lost to Washington 6-0. These are 3 drubbings, I guess, to good teams, but still, yeah. So it's like on one hand, I could be like, oh well, Michael Bunting is now on the top power play, and but Pittsburgh's also doing such crazy things with that power play. Like in this game, it was a Crosby, Raquel, Rust, Bunting, and Karlsson. Actually, that's normal. For a while, they had a whole thing with Puustinen, and then, but Malkin's not there, so it's not even that normal. You would expect Crosby and Malkin to be on the top power play. So Anyways, yeah, like on paper, I'd be like, okay, if Bunting's out there now, he's in a better spot. He was playing with Crosby and Rust at even strength, and Bunting was on the top power play. This is a good spot compared to where he was in Carolina. But on the other hand, if Pittsburgh's just totally terrible now and they're not going to score goals, then maybe it doesn't matter. I'm curious to get your take now. Oh, by the way, Brian Rust was back today. So I should mention that as someone that, again, should be interesting. But of course, it would help if Pittsburgh could score a goal. What do you think? Do you think, like, are we still in the mindset where we want to go for guys playing with Crosby and are on the top power play? Or do we have to start, like, switching that a little bit as the team continues to be terrible?
Well, again, the Penguins' power play is god awful. So, like, write that out of your mind.
Well, now they have Bunting. It's a whole,
Right.
a whole new
Well,
story.
and I love your instincts of star player gets moved at the deadline. Who's going to fill that hole that they left behind? And Bunting was very effective in Carolina on their power play. And of course, Kyle Dubas gets his binky back. So there's going to be a little bit of pressure from the front office to give him his minutes and justify him as the, as the star return of their trade. But this team is so old. They're like Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon. I'm too old for this. I'm too old for this, Riggs. And it's just Gino looking at Sid, I'm too old for this. Like,
and then Crosby's just like, I feel great. I feel amazing. I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, he's just popping his shoulder back into place and fighting all the bad guys. But like, no, like they've been through too many battles to be like, oh, we're actually throwing in the towel and we're gonna rebuild. And they're like, oh yeah, well, how about this? Here's the towel. It's in the middle of the room. We quit. Like if they could just not play the rest of the year, they would do it.
Damn. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Like, if you could get a good, like, 4 games for Pittsburgh next week, you can maybe do worse than a Bunting or a Raquel, like, yeah, on the top power play. But
oh no, I'm all out.
I'm nervous. You're
like,
out completely.
I'm terrified about Jari because this guy was like, but with the shutouts, like he was great fantasy points, like super erratic. But if you were in a points-based league, he was money because you had a chance at like an all-star night. But now, like, they might not win again.
Wow. And then, like, I guess then similar to my question about Skinner, if you're especially in a shallower league, I wonder if you're getting to a point where Malkin is someone that's not a guaranteed hold. Today was his 3rd straight game without a shot. Pointless in 3, shotless in 3 for Malkin. So he's doing nothing. Unless there's a bug on Frozen Tools, I'm seeing 3 straight what we call cardio sessions, like 0 cupful points, no hits, no shots, no blocks. Just like he was out there skating around for a bit and then hit the showers. That's a hard hold going into a fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, man, he's just dangling the white flag behind him out there. Just
damn.
Sid, I'm too old for this.
So yeah, maybe that would be a weird drop to see in my leagues, but also at the same time, am I like jumping on Malkin at this point? I don't know, but I probably would, but maybe I'm just a sucker. I don't know. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dive into like 1,000 more trades. So back in a sec. Okay, we are back. It's me, Elon Dubrovsky, with Steve Laidlaw, having a blast. 20 minutes in here. We've covered the Gensel trade. We've covered the Byron for Middlestat trade. We're humming along here. I guess let's jump quickly to Washington. They traded Kuznetsov. I just wanted to mention that they have some like things going on, interesting lines. Like Oshie might be back on Monday to switch things around. One of the patrons asked me about Lapierre, Hendrix Lapierre, who's been playing with Ovechkin, which is like obviously a really nice spot to be. Ovechkin is like white hot right now. But again, on the flip side, the only thing I would say is watch out for if Oshie comes back, then maybe the lines change. But yeah, Hendrix Lapierre, 8 points in his last 7 games. So definitely someone that you should pay attention to. Former first-round pick, though Brian always likes to point out the vast difference between an early first-round pick and a later first-round pick. So yes, I should say a 22nd overall pick back in 2020 for this guy, Hendrix Lapierre. So yeah, I'd be curious to get your take on him. And then also I'll just mention quickly for any of us that were wondering if it was worth like going into like this big week for a lot of people for their fantasy teams, and Washington only played twice. So I remember I was like debating, like, do I hold Dylan Strome because of his great schedule coming up, or do I have to let him go? Definitely the right choice was to keep him, because even though he only played twice, he did pick up 3 assists versus Pittsburgh and 1 assist versus Chicago. So you definitely want, now is the time to start jumping on these caps, because you've got a really nice schedule coming up for the next few weeks. And maybe that includes Hendrix Lapierre. Maybe that includes Sonny Milano, who's scoring a ton of goals, not taking many shots. It's like a crazy shooting percentage, but at some point, maybe you just jump on a guy who's going to play like a bunch of off day games for you for the next couple of weeks, even if it's not sustainable. So yeah, sorry, I'm throwing a lot of names at you, Steve. I guess Lapierre and Milano. Any interest in these sort of lower level caps at this point?
Okay, so Milano, no.
Okay.
Because you mentioned there's going to be some players coming back. I think he's kind of a one trick pony. So once they get a little bit healthier, I don't think there's going to be much room for him as even an everyday player. Lapierre, crazy heater, but it's in limited usage. Like there's not a ton of power play time there. But you mentioned like late first rounder, but he was an injuries guy, so that's why he fell at all in the draft. Like always had a ton of talent. So interesting. I'm kind of in on Washington as a whole because they're reminding me of last year's Blues. Like the Blues, they sold a bunch at last year's deadline and then were just like strangely effective because they still had like enough young talent and like scrappy vets that hadn't packed it in. Like they weren't like Evgeny Malkin just, you know, mailing it in for the rest of the year. Like they're going after it. Like Ovi's going to be chasing that goals record. He's not going to slow down. Tom Wilson's still trying to get himself back into shape. Dylan Strome's like he's finally like in his prime. TJ Oshie, I think, just wants to be healthy again. They've got like weird under the radar guys like Beck Mallenstein, who's weirdly effective as a blocks hits option. Like I like this team. I think there's a lot of potential. They've got a nice schedule for the fantasy playoffs, especially if you go all the way till mid-April. I I think there's a lot to be mined here.
Yeah, I'm with you. So, okay, if you, I want to make this analogy with the Blues here. So, who's the Sammy Blay? Maybe that's the Milano, because I remember Blay just went insane at the end of last season and had me convinced that he was someone worth holding in my dynasty league, and that didn't really work out. But then someone has to be the Kasperi Kapanen, who also I remember went crazy. We had to talk about him on the podcast a bunch.
Well, I think it's like a blend because like Blay was scoring goals like crazy, but he was also hitting
Yeah,
everything that moved. So like it's like a combo of Mallenstein and Lapierre.
right. And
That's
Milano with the goals.
exactly. So it's
There it
it's
is.
it's this weird blend. But I think like the option that like is going to jump out to me is like your Braden Shen is TJ Oshie if he gets back healthy. Because like there's enough people have Strome, but like TJ Oshie's like 10% owned because this latest injury, everyone was just like, well, you're done.
Yeah,
Um,
no. He could be back Monday is the
yeah.
latest. Like he's gonna be back any day now. Washington, by the way, that schedule at least coming up next couple of weeks. You got Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and then a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. So even if you don't have a lot of open roster spots, you could like drop a D for one of these caps and probably get a similar number of games. But okay, so let's move on here to our next big trade. How about Vegas doing Vegas things? I don't know how they. I mean, I guess they figure. I guess it's legal what they're doing. Somehow they got two other huge contracts coming in. I guess Hannafin's going to be a big contract if they re-sign him. But yeah, Hannafin they got from Calgary for whatever Miromanov, conditional first, or no, a first, a conditional third. Then they also got Hurdle from the Sharks, which no, I didn't know that was even on the like on the table. But now Hurdle goes to Vegas. He's injured right now. We'll see if the word is Hurdle will be back before the end of the regular season. So just in time, Vegas when the playoffs start, all of a sudden Hurdle's there, Stone is there. Obviously, they have to make the playoffs. They're not like a shoe in yet, but if they could squeeze in, all of a sudden this is going to be like a really strong team compared to how they looked, how their lineup looks now. But yeah, I guess looking at these players for fantasy, so Noah Hannafin had 2 assists in the 5-3 win over Detroit. He didn't have much power play time, though. I'm going to kind of assume this is not like amazing for Hannafin, but like, I mean, Hannafin's never been like a huge offensive producer in Calgary. He kind of goes hot and cold. So I imagine maybe he kind of stays the same. Like nobody's going to be bumping Shea Theodore. That's for sure. Shea Theodore is on a heater. He's your like offensive defenseman on the team. And then, yeah, I'm curious to see if Hannafin, like who's going to be more valuable in fantasy between him and like a Petrangelo.
I think it's the three entrees problem again, and
Yeah.
Hannafin's the spaghetti.
Okay, yeah. So probably he's just like great for the team, but I wouldn't be too excited about Hannafin if now I had him moved. But probably you weren't that excited about him beforehand, anyways.
No, but he's going to be doing what he was doing before. So like he can
Mhm.
still get you to like mid 30s, maybe even like inching in on 40s just because he's already piled up so many goals this season. But like marginal on the peripherals, nothing fantastic.
Yeah, and
Really
then
good hockey player. No great shakes in fantasy.
okay, yeah, and then yeah, it's fun to speculate. I guess we don't need to do it too much, but like what the lineup's going to look like when everyone's healthy. Like they'll have Eichel and Marchessault, maybe with, and then Hurdle maybe centers a line with Mark Stone. I'd imagine this is maybe bad for like a Chandler Stevenson who was centering Mark Stone, but also at this point we're already in the playoffs, and then maybe it's not something to worry about right now. But it'll be fun to see what Vegas does with their lines and power plays once Hurdle comes in.
Yeah, like for fantasy managers, Eichel, Marchessault, Barbashev is pretty much locked in. And then your shutdown line is probably Karlsson. So for Hurdle, when he returns, he's looking at like Chandler Stevenson and Anthony Mantha. And like he could grab some power play one time over Karlsson or Barbashev. Like
Yeah, you'd
there's
imagine.
there's nothing dynamite about either of those guys on their top power play. But like, I don't know, how healthy is Hurdle gonna be?
Yeah, he's coming off of surgery. I still think, I mean, San Jose has, like, Hurdle did better this season in San Jose than I expected him to with the players he was playing with. I'd imagine it's better for him, like, assuming he gets, like, he's going to be on, I think, the top power play, like you said. I think that makes sense. And he's going to just, like, be surrounded with all these great players. He'll be like, oh, this is exciting. So we'll see. And San Jose, man, now, like, Hurdle's gone. I guess he's already been injured. Like, Couture has been announced to be out for the season. This is a team that's, like, you know, led by Mikal Granlund at this point, who was like people were laughing about how bad he was last year. Now he's like, I
He's
guess the
got like
best player.
30 points in his last 30 games.
He's been
He's
incredible
crazy
now.
value. Him and Zetterland, those guys are the guys to mine off the waiver wire. Like we talked about, where are the holes after a talented player is traded? Well, Hurdle's been out, and this guy's already been producing. So
Yeah,
like the proof is in the pudding. You know who's going to be producing because this guy's been doing it for like 3 months now.
and man, in Ottawa, how do you feel about like the Sens lost to the Sharks yesterday? This is the Sharks team with like nobody. They traded Duclair. He had been around, and still the Sharks beat the Sens. So I guess kudos to the Sharks. And like if you're a Sens fan, it's just like this season has not gone the way we hoped it would.
Yeah, Ottawa, like the only thing you hope for with Ottawa is like hopefully the Tarasenko trade has like sorted out who their top four forwards are. Although like right now I think the most productive guy is Shane Pinto and he's like not among their top four forwards. You would figure it'd be Giroux, Batherson, Kachuk, and oh gosh, who am I forgetting? Stutzla. Like you would figure those are the four guys locked in and those guys are going to be getting points for you, but like it's not looking great, but who knows?
Yeah,
They've
they
got
only
a
got
nice
one.
schedule for the fantasy playoffs. So I'm hopeful that they align those four and start just producing.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be able to, score more goals against the likes of Krona on the Sharks. It's Magnus Krona who got the win. So yeah, maybe he's by the way someone to look at. By the way, I don't know if you want to take. Obviously, it's a bit of a roll of the dice, but Kakkonen was moved to New Jersey, and Blackwood is still injured. So I guess Magnus Krona might get some starts here. I guess if you're in a league that values volume, but
Yeah,
I
if
I
you
don't
just
think it's
need
gonna happen.
saves, like sure, fill your
Yeah, but
boots.
mentioning that, I guess we can look at. Oh, I have a lot of places I could go here. Let's look at the Calgary side quickly of this trade, where they traded away Hannafin. So they got destroyed by Florida 6-1. I also mentioned they lost another game recently, so Calgary's not looking too good. Markstrom may be in trouble, right? Like Hannafin, like you just said about how you're worried about Jari. I worry a little bit about Markstrom now. Tanev is gone. Now Hannafin is gone. He hasn't been doing that great lately. On the plus side, in terms of people stepping in and making an impact, Kuzmenko has been on the top power play and on the line with Kadri. He's been doing pretty good, better than getting scratched over in Vancouver. Sharon Govich is really like hot right now. He's like the one player on Calgary that you definitely want to start even on a busy day at this point, I would say. But yeah, that's kind of like my takes on what Calgary's looking like at the moment.
So Sharon Govich, he's like almost a point per game since the start of December. There's been some hot and cold patches, but he's not bad. Definitely someone who like I think it's like 41% owned on Yahoo, and you could certainly push that up. As far as Markstrom goes, the schedule looks tough next week with Colorado Vegas lined up, but then it's basically like all Pacific teams and like a Montreal thrown in there. So like maybe the Hanifin trade is finally like the straw that broke the camel's back. They've shed enough legitimate NHL talent that like their team's just in shambles. But it's also possible that they just played two of the best teams that have loaded up and steamrolled them, and then they're just going to get back to being kind of the up and down herky jerky team. Like I could see them getting creamed by Colorado and Vegas, and everyone being like, "It's over, it's done," like I just did with the Penguins, and then them rattling off a 5-game win streak again.
Oh, so maybe wait for Markstrom to get dropped after a couple more rough starts and then pick him up right in time for him to help you in your fantasy playoffs. That's a good idea to like look at not only the the recent stats, but about the teams they've played and the upcoming teams, especially for a goalie. That makes a lot of sense. Speaking of goalies, so I mentioned that the Sharks traded Kokkonen to New Jersey for Vitek Vanacek, who's injured. So New Jersey also traded for Jake Allen. They sent a pick to get Jake Allen. So I guess that leaves. So New Jersey's interesting, right? Because like they're kind of out of it anyways, but now they're making all these big changes. And Nico Dawes has been, I guess, up and down. Like he's played the last couple of games and he's been like pretty good. He only let in 1 goal in the win over St. Louis, and then let in 2 goals on 24 shots in the loss to Carolina yesterday. But I'd imagine that's it, right? Like now that they've got Kokkonen and Jake Allen, they'll just send Nico Dawes to the minors. That's my guess. I haven't seen anything official about that yet, but I'd imagine now it's time to forget about Dawes. And I wonder, is there a New Jersey goalie? Like, do you jump on Kokkonen now and hope that he can be a valuable guy to you, or do you think he like splits with Allen? Like, I don't. Do you have any instinct on what's going to happen in net there?
So, do you remember when you were a kid and you begged your parents for like months for like this one like specific name brand toy? Like you really, really like. We'll throw it back, '90s kids. We'll throw it back. You really wanted this specific Beanie Baby. Like you wanted
Okay,
Chocolate the Moose.
I
You
think I have a
had to
guess
have
of where this is
Chocolate the
going.
Moose.
Okay, I need a Chocolate the Moose.
And instead of a Beanie Baby, you got a Beanie Buddy, like the
Okay.
knockoff brand. And so like you're both happy and sad at the same time because like yeah, you got a toy, but it wasn't what you had your heart set on. So like getting
Mm-hmm.
Jake Allen and Capo Kakinen when you were promised Jake Markstrom is kind of like getting a Beanie Buddy.
That's funny. Yeah, at that point, it's like, why not just stick with Dawes? So I guess Cochran could stick around next year. I actually thought you were going to go another way with that analogy. I thought you were going to be like, you really wanted a baby, and your parents were like, maybe one day, maybe one day. And then finally, once the bubble like burst and no one wanted beanie babies anymore, that's when they got you one. You're like, I don't need this anymore. I think that's
Well,
New Jersey.
also that.
They needed a goalie like 2 months ago, and then maybe they wouldn't be in the situation where they're going to miss the playoffs. I feel like they waited so long.
That's like when my mom bought me a FUBU shirt like 5 years ago.
I hear the kids are into FUBU right
Yeah,
now. And then No Fear is coming for you soon, I think.
absolutely. Yeah, those are in the mail.
Okay, so what do I have next here? Oh yeah, so I guess to finish the loop, I'm just doing a lot of connections here. So we were talking about the Sharks. They traded Anthony Duclair, like I mentioned, over to Tampa Bay. This is looking like a potential nice turn of events for Anthony Duclair. He was playing yesterday in the blowout win over Philly. Duclair was playing on a line with Stamkos and Cirelli. Duke was on the second power play, so that's not ideal, but he had a great game, right? 1 goal, 1 assist, including a power play assist from that second power play. And also, we've seen like Nick Paul on PP1. We've seen Cirelli there most recently. I feel like it's not out of the question that at some point they give Duclair a shot there to see like how that looks before they go into the playoffs. So we could potentially be looking at like a top 6, maybe top power play guy. I'd be like, New Jersey doesn't have a great schedule next week, only like I think Thursday, Saturday. So no need to rush for Duclair. But once the schedule picks up, he's someone that I've got my eye on at least.
So, like, I'm not ruling out the possibility that he ends up on power play 1 for them, but the rest of their forwards on power play 1 are all right-handed,
Okay.
and they're all locked in as like guys playing across the dots. So if you're gonna fit as a power play piece on that top power play unit, you should probably be good at faceoffs and be left-handed, because then you fit perfectly as that net front guy who can win faceoffs on your strong side with the left hand. And so that's why you see guys like Nick Paul and now Cirelli in those spots. And like Duclair has never been a centerman. So I don't necessarily see that fit, nor is he like really a guy you want to stick in the net front. Like he's all speed, and they don't necessarily need that on their top power play unit. Now, like I'm not ruling it out, but I don't necessarily see the fit the way I do with some of those other pieces.
No, that's
But
good
like,
to know.
is he even healthy? Because
Got
like,
2
is like
points in the last game.
is that why he like was finally able to get this huge push from San Jose before the trade deadline? Like he had like 8 points in like 3 games before getting traded, and then 2 points in his Tampa Bay debut. So like, is this a sign that he's actually healthy? Because if he is, then like he doesn't need top power play unit. Like this guy can score 60 points, like not playing a second of power play time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess that's a good question. Yeah, so definitely someone to watch if he is healthy now. If he's at his best, then Duclair is a really good player. Yeah, he had 2 goals and 2 assists in his last game with San Jose against Dallas, so that was a really nice send off for him in the 7-6 loss. What a crazy game! And yeah, by the way, Tampa also picked up what's his name? Oh, Matt Dumba. No fantasy relevance, but just to complete the circle there on what Tampa did here at the trade deadline.
Yeah. Dumba is like, when your mom overcooks the turkey.
Okay. Yeah, he played top pairing minutes, it looked like, with
Yeah.
Fleury. But yeah, definitely not going to help your fantasy team. He played 20 minutes, and he played some shorthanded time. But yeah, and he had 5 penalty minutes. I guess he had a fight. I should be up to speed on this. I don't know what happened with Matt Dumba in that game against Philly. Oh, that's the game. And then Tortorella, I wonder if those 5 penalty minutes are surrounding the part where Tortorella yelled at the refs, and now he's been suspended for 2 games, which is like kind of like a whole separate thing. It's kind of funny that a coach gets suspended for 2 games for like, I guess, swearing at the refs when
I'm
like
not leaving. I'm not leaving.
Some players are like doing like really dangerous things and they get like a fine. Looking at you, Jacob Trouba. But anyway, what do I want? Oh yeah, one more thing on Tampa before we move on. Dylan Radish. No, that's not even his name. Darren Radish. Darren Radish had 3 assists in the last game. So that doesn't happen too often. Apparently it was like, he had 5. Okay, let me just take that again. One last thing on Tampa. Darren Radish had 5 assists in that game against Philly. That in the 7-0 win. Those were his first points in like 6-7 games. I just have to say it. Like I assume we're not going to read into this, but I feel like you can't have a player get a 5-assist game and for me not to mention him on the show. So any increased interest in Darren Radish after seeing that?
I mean, probably not. But like, if I don't know, the addition of Duclair means that their second power play unit's actually going to be used and they're going to score a couple of times, then I don't know. Like he might pop the odd point for you, but no, like it's Hedman or bust.
Yes. Okay. So if you're in a super deep league and it's hard to get D, then maybe there's a slight increase for Darren Radish. A very eye-popping game for anyone. I wonder. Let us know. Tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson if you had Darren Radish on your roster for those 5 assists. That must have been a really exciting night for you. But okay, let's take a break and then we'll come back with the next trade. See you in a sec. All right, we are back. Elon Dubrovsky, Steve Laidlaw. We're the insiders here, kind of talking about the deadline. I think we're putting on a pretty good show. I don't know. I didn't watch the one on the major networks, but I'd say we're probably pretty similar.
I have no inside information whatsoever. I have no connections to any team, but I'm happy to comment and lob grenades from afar.
Well, I'm having a good time. Yeah, let's go to Florida, okay? Anthony Duclair's former team, and they got Vladimir Tarasenko for nothing. So that's pretty good. I guess the benefit of playing in a nice climate, I guess.
Yeah. Did you watch? Did you watch the Squid Game reality TV series?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so on the Squid Game reality TV series, they had they couldn't do all of the eliminations that happened on the actual Squid Game. So they had one where each person had to select one person that they were going to save from like the next purge, and then that person would pick one person.
Okay.
And Ottawa feels like they were the team that didn't get picked.
Oh. I mean, like, it just seems like such a good thing that teams do. You get a guy who's a pending UFA, or you sign someone for a 1 year deal. You hope he gives you a push, and then if it doesn't work out, then you trade him at the deadline. And Ottawa, though, gave Tarasenko the no trade clause, and then here we are. But anyways, whatever. Their loss, Florida's gain, and I think your gain if you have Tarasenko in fantasy, because he had himself a game. Yesterday, 2 goals and 1 assist for Tarasenko in the 5-1 win over Calgary. And you look at the lines that Florida was running. Tarasenko was playing with a couple guys you may have heard of, Alex Barkov and Sam Reinhart. Not a bad pair of line mates. There was not top power play for Tarasenko, but Matthew Tkachuk, I guess, plays on all the power plays now. So when he was out there, it was still a strong-looking power play, and we'll see how things shake out over the next little while. But if Tarasenko's on that top line, I think he's very exciting, and I would definitely want him in my roster in most formats. But I guess I guess the other thing I should mention, he scored 2 goals on 2 shots, so that is a little Sonny Milano-esque. But it's Tarasenko, it's not Sonny Milano, so I give him a little bit more leeway, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. With these veterans who end up going to good teams but maybe aren't playing top power play, you're you're going to fall victim to the PDO gods here. So for him to really pop, it's going to be because he goes on an unsustainable heater, not because he's suddenly in some like fantastically better opportunity. Like I think it's a very good opportunity, but like he was sometimes getting top power play minutes in Ottawa. So like it's not, I don't think much changes for Tkachuk unless you have like plus minus in your league. But like for me, it's like not much changes for Tarasenko. But like
Right.
for me, what changes is like, so now Carter Verhaeghe potentially could get bumped off of the top power play unit by Tarasenko. And if that happens, then like Tarasenko, it goes way up, and Verhaeghe, it goes way down. But also like Sam Bennett is no longer playing all the time with Nick Cousins. Now he's like either got Verhaeghe or Tarasenko as his other line mate alongside Matthew Tkachuk, who's like scored as much as anyone since the start of January. So I think the fallout for like Bennett gaining on power play 2 is like maybe he's the guy who gains the most out of this whole thing.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, this top 6 now is like very stacked and really nice. And you don't have to like sometimes throw in a Nick Cousins or someone. Yeah, you've got like 6 legit players, and so you think anyone playing with these guys like and playing with each other should be pretty good. So yeah, and Florida just scores a lot of goals. Very exciting team going into this playoffs. I'll be curious to see if they could repeat what they did last year. They also, by the way, I'll mention Ekblad and Evan Rodriguez got hurt in the last game. We don't have updates, so that's something to keep an eye on. Not that either of them have been especially interesting for fantasy recently. Also, I guess I should mention Gustav Forsling. Congrats on the new contract, 8 years, 5.75 mil. So he's going to be locked in till he's like 35, 36 years old. He's doing great. Like, he's not one of these players. Remember Nylander got his new contract with the Leafs, and then they had a couple games where he didn't do anything. People were like, "Oh, he got his bag. Now he's gonna rely." I mean, he's definitely picked it up since then. So then all of a sudden, probably those people got quiet on Twitter. But yeah, Forsling, he had 2 assists versus Calgary, bringing him to 6 points in his last 4 games. I've got a tough decision to make, Steve. I have Forsling in my dynasty league. It's a cap league. If I keep him next year, I have to like keep him for the whole 8 years or buy him out and pay a big penalty. Do you think how good is Gustav Forsling? Like, I liked him when he was like a $2 million guy in a short-term contract.
He's he's gone. Like that's I'm assuming your league is similar to my dynasty league in that like you've only got so much that you can spend, and like like 35 points, a really nice plus minus, and like 90 hits and blocks is not like, that's not 5.75 million worth, like if
He's pacing for 44, Steve. So if that makes
so
wow,
that certainly does not.
enough.
Like it's just like it's one of those things where like even though like you're kind of getting a bargain relative to what like say like a I don't know like a Darnell Nurse is getting as like a similar like not as much bash for a Forsling, but like similar placement on a depth chart for an NHL team. Like, is Ekholm owned in your league?
Yeah, but like he was recently traded as a cap dump. Like yeah,
So
yeah.
that's Forsling.
Yeah, I see. Interesting. There is the possibility. Now I'm just like reaching here, but like, and obviously I don't have to decide until next season starts. But Brandon Montour is on an expiring contract. If Florida doesn't bring him back, maybe that moves Forsling up the. Maybe gets more power play. But anyway,
I mean, it
we'll
could,
see.
but like, I think Oliver Ekman Larson was playing top power play ahead of him before
Right,
Montour.
that's true. That's a good point.
Like,
Okay, fair
like
enough.
Forsling, he is what he is, and he's like a supremely effective NHL defenseman who's just like it just doesn't translate to
Hmm.
like unless your league counts like minutes, then you're probably not happy with 5.75 million worth of
Yeah, I
middling
get you.
stats. Gustav
But
Forsling.
yeah, but for now, anyways, for people in 1 year leagues, he's on a hot streak. He's feeling himself with all this money he's gonna make. So a good stream potentially if you need D. Um, Also, Brian and I often like to keep track of who's friends with who on teams. Sometimes it's important. I can't explain why. So Florida also acquired Kyle Okposo from Buffalo, and there was a recent interview of Sam Reinhart, or maybe it was like an old interview from Reinhart that was recently like unearthed, saying that he like loved playing with Kyle Okposo and he thought he was like the greatest guy. So reuniting of friends, Reinhardt
But
and
isn't that
Okposo.
like everyone says that about Okposo? Like it's just
He's a
like a
great
stand
guy,
up dude, just stand up dude. It's like
100%.
everyone's favorite. Like should be a future politician.
So, yeah, that'd be fun. Okay, so next trade. I don't have any connections here, so we're gonna go something completely new. We're going to New York, where they got Jack Roslovic for a pick, and Roslovic, kind of like Anthony Duclair, really turned things on before this trade deadline to, I guess, boost his value. I mean, it's not like he was traded for that much, but anyways, like Roslovic was looking like a really great hold in fantasy. He was playing on the top line and top power play for a bit with Gaudreau and Jenner, and things were really clicking. And by the looks of it, it's like a good spot where Roslovic now lands in New York. He was playing in this last game against St. Louis, which was a 4-0 win on the top line. It was Kreider, Zibanejad, and Roslovic, leaving Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere alone. Rangers also got Alex Wenberg, I should mention, who's in the bottom six. But yeah, it's a nice spot for Roslovic. He wasn't on the top power play. He got second power play. So maybe a similar to the Tarasenko treatment. Do you have high hopes? It wasn't a big game in his first game for the Rangers. No points, only 2 shots. Before that, like I said, Roslovic was on a little bit of a heater. Is he someone now that he's been traded, like less interest, dump him if you were excited about having him? Or are you excited to, see what he can do on this top line? There's been a lot of people who've been shuffling into that top line. No one's been that good. Like Kafo Kako hasn't been able to go off. Jimmy VC never did anything, but maybe Jack Roslovic can.
Well, that was going to be my point. Like he's going into the Capo Caco spot. So like, is that a good spot? Like to my mind, he just went from like the third lead in True Detective to the backup dancer in the Barbie movie. Like, oh yeah, you're in this big movie. Like, good for you, Jack. And it's like, well, he was chewing up
He's just
scenes on True
he's one of the
Detective.
Kens. He's one
Yeah,
of the Kens now.
yeah, he was chewing up scenes on True Detective, and now he's just a backup dancer. Like it just like
Huh.
I don't know. I'd rather be
Top
chewing up
line.
scenes.
Okay. We'll see. I mean, the one thing I will say is that the Rangers have 5 games next week. And it starts with Monday, Tuesday. If you have space in your roster on Monday, Tuesday, I would give him a shot on the top line, even if Steve might be right that it's not an exciting spot actually, and he's just a background player. I'll take him for the Monday, Tuesday and see how it goes, and then reassess before the Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. But yeah, that lines could change. But hey, the Rangers won, so they're not going to change it that quickly. Then I mentioned Wenberg. Obviously, he's not someone worth discussing. I guess we can look at the Columbus side.
Can I
So
mention
now,
one thing
oh
on
please,
Whitberg?
yeah,
So if you're in a league with face-off wins, Jared McCann, he's
okay,
now
so
taking face-offs. So now you're getting like a almost 3 shot per game guy, 65-point guy, potential 30-goal scorer, who's now getting face-off wins. Like this is a guy who was on the waiver wire in one of my leagues with face-off wins because just not quite productive enough. Now he's getting those face-off wins. Now he's supremely interesting.
okay, if
We
he
talk
gets
about
him,
guys who are traded. like the hole that's filled behind. Big fan of Jared McCann now that Wenberg's been moved along.
Yeah, I guess it's something to watch if he's a center. And it's always nice in those face-off win leagues when you have like a winger that's taking face-offs, because then you can get face-offs from your center spots and now from some wing spots. So yeah,
Stacking them.
I wasn't even considering that. But yeah, I mean, McCann's already like rostered for sure in your league and the trade deadline has passed. So there's probably nothing you could do. But if you have McCann, you can be like, woo. But I guess you said that there was a league where he wasn't even rostered because he wasn't contributing enough, which is pretty wild. So I guess he should be now because he's been on a great roll, right? Like McCann's having himself he had a slow start this year, but already up to almost 70-point pace and climbing. Wouldn't be surprised if he could hit 75 by the end. I guess we'll see how the rest of the season goes. So I wanted to jump to Columbus now because, like I said, Roslovic was on that top line, so now that's a hole that, at least in the last game, was filled in by Igor Chinnikov against the Preds. Columbus lost that game 2-1, but yeah, it was Chinnikov playing with Gaudreau and Jenner. But then on the top power play, it was Alex Nylander playing with Gaudreau and Jenner, and then a couple of defensemen, and Werenski and Boqvist. Nylander is someone who's come out of nowhere, like literally, like he wasn't even in the league, and to now all of a sudden be super valuable over these past few weeks in fantasy, scoring a lot of goals. He didn't score any points in that last game against Nashville, but he did have 5 shots, which is something that you might find interesting. And also, like I said, top power play. So I'm curious now that Roslovic is gone. And I actually asked Brian a couple weeks ago, like Columbus was going into like the best schedule of the week. So I was like, outside of Gaudreau and Jenner, like who's the third Columbus forward? Like who's the main guy that you target if they're all out there at free agency? And I was like being like, is it Voronkov? Is it like Marchenko?
I love Voronkov. I love
Okay.
Voronkov, but honestly, like it could change by the day. Because like when it's Voronkov, Chinnikov, and Marchenko playing together, like that's oftentimes their best line. But if Chinnikov's getting the top line boost, maybe next time it's Marchenko getting the top line boost, although he's recently been like scratched. So like maybe that's not happening at all. It's probably based on deployment. Nylander, like you take a chance, and if that power play is clicking, then kudos to you. You found a scorer basically out of nowhere. But I see it changing all the time. And I think if you're hedging your bets, you want to go for the peripherals, and that's Voronkov. He's a lot more consistent with those.
Interesting. Yeah. So I think I agree with you. It's like really just hard to pick a guy. Like there's so many options there. Like I should mention
that's
that
a bad team.
But I don't know, a lot of people that randomly fall. Like Roslovic was so good. He was so valuable. Who cared if it was a bad team?
For like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then he went to the Barbie movie.
Yeah. I like that movie. Maybe I'll watch. I saw it.
It's a great movie. Yeah. He's just a backup dancer.
I should mention, just for completion, like Nylander has been scoring some goals. You know who's been assisting on a lot of those goals? Alex Texier. Nylander's been online with Texier and Sillinger, and Texier is on a nice run himself. 6 points in his last 5 games, 2 goals, 4 assists. So just another name to throw out there. If you're itching to add a Columbus Blue Jacket, there's a lot of options available in your free agency. Unless you're in the deepest league of all time, you might be able to get like 5 of the players we've mentioned in this segment talking about the Blue Jackets.
If you have an alarm clock that shoots off a cannon, then Alex Texier is for you.
I don't. This might again be a reference. Isn't it
the
like,
Columbus cannon?
Columbus, they do a cannon, yeah.
Yeah.
And Merzlikins didn't like it last year. But what does it have to do with Texier?
Well, it's just like you would only have like your.
Oh, that's the only reason you would. Okay, I gotcha. Okay. All right. Next trade. Oh, yeah. New Jersey. So, okay, I already talked to you about the New Jersey goalies. We talked about the Beanie Babies. Okay, the other thing that New Jersey did was they moved Tyler Toffoli out to Winnipeg. So let's look at New Jersey first, because this is a team, even though they're not going to make the playoffs, they still have a lot of big hitters that you want to have exposure to.
Timo Meier eruption.
Yes, Meier has been insane. So Meier's been playing with Hischier and Palat. No more third line with Dawson Mercer for Meier. And Meier's also been on the top power play, which was generally a spot this season that he only had when one of like Hughes or Hischier was injured. But now it's been like just the big 4: Hughes, Bratt, Hischier, Meier, Luke Hughes. And yeah, Meier now has 10 points in his last 6 games, has scored.
It's Timo time.
Yeah. So okay, that's the answer. Not probably again, like nothing you could really do with it. But yeah, he's like one of the hottest players in the league. He benefits big time, I guess, from Toffoli being gone.
Massively, like game changer. Like the team that's at the bottom of your league because they drafted Timo Meyer in like the second round is like they're gonna clean up the consolation playoffs.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, he killed you all year, but now he's going to be incredible for you. Yeah, I mean that's what you wanted. Like that's what we were saying the whole time. It was like just Meyer just couldn't fit in for some reason, and get like a decent deployment spot. But I guess yeah, when your team sucks and you trade away some assets, all of a sudden spots open up. So it'll be fun to see what he does, and then it'll be really tricky then next year in fantasy when you're doing your drafts. If like Meyer ends the season super hot, do you assume that continues into next year, or do you have to worry that once again he gets pushed down? But I guess that's a future problem. But that'll be an interesting discussion to have over the summer.
Yeah. Well, they had to boost Tyler Toffoli's trade value so they could get a second
Oh,
and a
I
third
see.
at the deadline. Like
Yeah,
they
that
had
was
to
the
do
plan
it.
all year long to
Yeah.
try to get a
It's
good.
the long game.
Yeah, that's why they didn't trade for a goalie. It all makes sense
Yeah.
now.
That's what
Yeah.
that's why they kept the coach around only to fire him eventually. Like,
So New Jersey. I mentioned the fact that they got Jake Allen. So he comes from Montreal, and Montreal had been doing a three goalies thing with Allen, Montembeault, and Caden Primo. And so now Allen's gone in Montreal, and Caden Primo has been like not very good at all. Like if you look at his game log, it's like 3 goals against, 3 goals against. There's actually a shutout back on February 13th against Anaheim. Wait, only 13 shots against? Well, that must have been a boring game. But anyway, so that happened. But aside from that, yeah, Caden Primo hasn't been that great. Sam Montembeault has been pretty decent, especially for a guy on a team that's like, not going anywhere. Well, like, I don't want to say that. Like Montreal has good prospects. Like one day they'll go somewhere, but not this season. Anyway, so Montembeault, like over a 900 save percentage, I find that pretty impressive on this Montreal team. And now he's no longer in this three-headed monster, and maybe he's not even in like a tandem. Maybe he's now the starter because it was mainly like Montembeault and Allen going back and forth. So maybe some, this might be like a Magnus Corona situation. Like, be careful, like buyer beware. But worth noting, Montembeault's fantasy value has probably gone up if you want to get some volume.
well, and especially like if you're thinking like keeper leagues, like I don't necessarily know that Montreal is going to be great next year, but I think they're going to try. And there's always a team that makes the leap unexpectedly. And why not them? So Montembeault is at least interesting from that standpoint, removing that wrinkle for next season.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point as well. And yeah, he's already locked in on a contract. Montreal extended him earlier this year. So Montembeault definitely someone to watch. I have a guy named Dobesh in my Dynasty League. So I hope he's been playing in the AHL. I don't know. Maybe he'll be good one day. But yeah, for now, it seems like there's not much competition for Montembeault. I mean, Caden Primo was supposed to be the next big prospect goalie on the Habs, but so far that hasn't materialized. We'll see how much longer the Habs give him to prove himself before they switch over to my guy Dobesh. You know this guy? He's got a
I
win
don't.
recently.
I do know Primo. Great numbers in college, and then not so much since turning pro.
Yeah. Time for them to go to the next one, I think. Okay. And then so Tyler Toffoli is going to Winnipeg. He hasn't played a game yet, so we don't have anything to really sink our teeth into. I don't even think we have line combinations yet with Toffoli, unfortunately. They did switch around their lines in the last game. They put Ehlers back. Like they do this a lot. They like kind of start with Ehlers on like a second line and move him to the top line mid game or vice versa. But anyways, for a while we were seeing like Nemesnikov with Connor and Scheifele, and then Ehlers was with Monahan and like someone Iafallo. I don't know. Sometimes Perfetti gets in the lineup, and now it kind of seems like we've got a top six that seems pretty solid. Like I don't know how they'll be combined, but some combination of like Scheifele, Connor, Ehlers, and then Monahan and Toffoli. Wait, who am I missing? Oh, and Velarde, but Velarde's injured, so I guess there is actually still an open spot for someone. Anyway, all that to be said, is this good for Tyler Toffoli being moved to Winnipeg? I assume he gets top power play
I think it's
over one of
bad.
these
Like
guys. Okay.
he could steal top power play from Monahan, or maybe Velarde. It's more serious, and he grabs those minutes. But to me, it's like he falls back into more of that like second line, second power play. Oh, Tyler Toffoli, he scored 25 goals and 50 points. Yay.
I see.
He's getting back to that mode rather than having like the push that he had in New Jersey, and certainly the push that he had the prior year in Calgary. And like the even bigger is like this is the final nail in the coffin for Cole Perfetti. Like
for this year at least,
he's done for the year. Yeah. Forget that.
He's been getting scratched. So
yeah.
Even with Toffoli not having arrived yet. So yeah, I think that Toffoli. I mean, we'll get more information. We have our short shifts. So Lewis, Shams, and Jeremy, and maybe Derek will do some shows this week on what you'll get it Wednesday morning. Hopefully by then we'll have some data and they'll share what's been going on with Toffoli and what lines he's been getting and how he did in his first game as a Winnipeg Jet. Okay, you know what? See, I guess we could just keep burning through here. Let's take a break, our last break. And then we're doing great here. Brian and I feel like if this was Brian and I, it would have taken us 2.5 hours to get this far. Maybe too much bickering, but I feel like you and I have been in agreement, so it's been a pleasure. But okay, we'll take a break and then we'll come back and talk some more trades. Okay, welcome back to Keeping Karlsson. Elon here, Steve here. I guess you probably just skipped.
It's not Steve here. I need to start arguing with you more. So that
okay. It's going to be a new vibe for the last 20, 30 minutes or so. I don't even know why I do this thing of saying, resetting. Probably people when I listen to a podcast, it goes to an ad break and I just fast forward the ads as fast as I can. So it's only been probably a second since, when I said we'll be back. So anyways, what am I doing now? Now I'm just wasting time. Okay. Next trade. Let's go to a guy. I'm going to say this is the player who lost the most fantasy value in the whole trade deadline. And that's Adam Henrique going to Edmonton, because Adam Henrique had even just for this past week, which I'm going to lose my matchup this week, and it's a very close matchup. And I had Adam Henrique locked in on my team for a Wednesday, Friday, Sunday for Anaheim. Anaheim.
The Anaheim special.
Amazing. And Henrique had been doing so well. He was getting the best deployment. Zegras wasn't there. No one was there, So Henrique was getting the top power play. He was getting great minutes. He was getting points. And then all of a sudden he goes to Edmonton, where Edmonton never plays on off days. I guess they played today. Did Henrique get a point today? Let's see here. Edmonton beat
He almost certainly did not.
4-0. Yeah, no points for Henrique. He stinks. So I think right away this is the easiest, the guy who went from you should have him in most leagues, especially if it's head-to-head and you're enjoying that off-day schedule, to there's no reason to have him. They had him on a line with Draisaitl for I think one game. He's already been bumped away from that, and it's not as if that's going to change necessarily. Oilers just destroyed Pittsburgh. Not that that's so hard. But yeah, I think Henrique, you've got him as a third line, power play 2 nobody now that maybe you'll stream in once in a while when Edmonton has 2 days in a row of games. But other than that, I don't know, good for the Oilers. Again, this is a trade that probably helps them. They have depth. That's good. I'm sure he'll be useful to them in their playoff run, but tanked his value. Brutal.
Yeah, he's joining Roslovic in the Barbie movie.
Look, Roslovic is at least on the top line. I still have some faith. If I was picking between Roslovic and Henrique, I would take Roslovic. I'll say that.
Ooh, falling hard. No, maybe not.
Then we can look at Anaheim. So they've gotten Terry and McTavish back from their injuries. Apparently Zegras will be back soon. They acquired a guy named Ben Myers from Colorado. He played in Anaheim's last game. But yeah, this is a team that's not scoring too many goals. I see, Anaheim's playing right now. Let's check in here. We're in the second period. They're losing 3-1 to the Islanders. Let's see, Killorn. Okay, Alex Killorn's been good. He's been scoring goals. This is a guy, and again, he's got
when healthy
now. Yeah, when healthy, and he's getting all the deployment. He scored today, assisted by Max Jones. Max Jones is a guy that's been another former first rounder, late but still, and he's been getting top deployment. He was playing with Killorn, and I think it's McTavish. I'll go check right now to verify that. McTavish, Jones, and Killorn. So if you're in a super deep league and you want to take advantage of some off days, you can go for Max Jones. But if you have a Killorn available, he's great. I think he should be rostered in most leagues at this point.
That's definitely the guy to mind, because obviously Terry and Vetrano and even McTavish have been scooped, but Killorn has been injured for so much of the season that there's a little bit of potential there.
In my dynasty league I was telling you about, Killorn's in free agency still. No one's taken him because of that long-term, was it $6 million a year schedule? I guess I should leave him.
Yeah, they're not gonna. No.
I kind of want him, but I don't have the cap space.
Yeah, it always feels it's free. I don't even have to talk to anyone.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Because a lot of the people in that league don't like me, so it's really hard to make trades at this point.
It's like self-checkout.
Yeah.
I could just grab this guy and start winning.
Yeah, and then it's like when I don't want him anymore, they're like, "Sorry,
Yeah,
you have to hold him forever."
you made your
But
bed.
okay, so yeah, that's the Anaheim. I guess. Okay, I'll throw one more trade at you, and then maybe we can just end on some like hot and cold streaks and injuries that we weren't able to get to. But yeah, I think there's some relevance here to Jason Zucker going to Nashville. Zucker had himself a decent first game yesterday. He was playing on a line with Sissons and Beauvillier. So yeah, like the line combinations aren't that good. I'm just bringing up the numbers here. I think I wrote down. He had 3 shots. Okay, it wasn't even like such a good game, but he had 3 shots against Columbus, and then actually Nashville played today, and they lost to Minnesota 4-3. And I'm seeing Zucker only had 1 shot. Second power play. The thing is, like on the top power play on Nashville, they've been rolling with like O'Reilly, Nyquist, Forsberg. Oh, and then for a while it was Colton Sissons. I see now it's Luke Evangelista, which makes a lot more sense. I was gonna say that I feel like Zucker could potentially bump Colton Sissons, but Evangelista has been like hot, and he's like a really good player. So forget maybe this Zucker thing isn't even that interesting. Maybe we should just spend this time talking about Luke Evangelista and his 4 points in his last 4 games. He scored in 3 straight.
Yeah, I like Evangelista a lot, and I also like another young player, Dylan Gunther, who's probably going to play out the string in Arizona now
Mm.
that guys like Zucker are gone. So if there's any impact to that trade, I think it's that the kids are coming in Arizona.
Yeah, Gunther today scored a goal and 5 shots against Chicago. Chicago beat Arizona 7-4. Yikes. It was looking good for Connor Ingram. He had a couple good games, and you were probably like, okay, I guess now we got a gimme against Chicago, and that's the game where he gets blown up. So that's why fantasy hockey is a bit tricky sometimes. I don't think that many people would have been like, I think I would bench Ingram today against Chicago. You don't want to risk it, but I guess it was a huge risk.
Yeah, well, fantasy's such like it's the stakes are a lot smaller, but like we're getting to the fantasy playoffs. So it's like you spent all this time, all this sweating and preparing your draft, setting your lines every day, like negotiating trades, all this stuff, and like all this time and effort, and then so some Magnus Krona comes in and
Yeah,
like
kills you.
pitches a shutout against you, and you lose in round one in some incredible upset, and you're just like, well, that's like climbing Everest, and then like you just about at the peak, and it's like the weather turned, have to go turn around. What?
Yeah.
But all this time, I have
I really,
frostbite. I'll never
I try
feel
really,
again.
I try really hard, Steve, to not let my self-esteem be affected when I lose in fantasy because it's so hard not. It's like I talk about it all the time. I'm like always thinking about it. Then when I lose, I'm like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Then I have to remind myself of like what you just said. Like you can't. We're doing our best here, but it's there's a lot of randomness and luck that goes into it. So you can't win them
But
all.
but I say go the other way with it.
Just like kill yourself. Okay,
Like
I'm gonna edit that out. Sorry.
yeah,
Oh,
but like close to it, because like so like we're social creatures. We're built around status. We care about where we are in the hierarchy, and
mhm.
so but we have all these different like tribes that we associate ourselves with. So
This
like
is
if you
great.
can have a tribe like fantasy hockey, where it's like that's my jam, like I win all the time, and like people look to me for like advice, and like that's where I'm the top chimp. Then like it's some frivolous thing. Like that's ultimately what fantasy hockey is. So
Look,
like it
yeah.
doesn't matter, but like your status does matter. So it's like it's awesome. And then you don't have to go out into the like your day-to-day job and be an asshole to be the top chimp. You could just be like cool and relaxed, because in fantasy you dominate. But then like you just like turn off that killer instinct when you go to be like a normal human in the world. And you don't like scream at people in traffic.
This sounds great, except for the fact that I'm losing this year, and now I feel like crap. And I was trying to make myself feel better, and now you're making me feel like, oh wait, I am a terrible person now
But
that I've lost
about
in my
all the
fantasy
people
league.
that you're helping
Yeah, that's the
with this
point. Yeah,
podcast.
that's the
So
main
you
thing.
still have top dog.
Oh, I thought
Top
you meant
dog
the
you
people
are.
I'm helping by them defeating me in my
Oh
fantasy
yeah,
leagues
no, that
this
you're
year.
also that. Also that.
Also, I have a Dylan Gunther's Frozen Tools page up right now, and I think I haven't had a haircut in a while, and I'm starting to have a pretty good Dylan Gunther hairstyle. I think that I could dress up as him for a holiday. I need it styled how he has it, but
Mm,
I've got the volume ready. But okay, I guess
excellent.
let's move on now away from trades. I'm sure someone is like writing up their tweet right now, being like, "How dare you not cover the I don't know, insert random trade." I was thinking
Anthony
like, okay,
Beauvillier,
Anthony Beauvillier. Who did he go to?
Nashville.
Oh, right. Okay, I think I mentioned him. Okay, yeah. So I didn't mean. So what do you think, Anthony Beauvillier? Is he going to be an impact guy now that he's an former? Isn't he a former first round pick? I think so.
Yes,
I remember my favorite
sounds
thing about
correct.
Beauvillier was oh, what's her name now? There was like an actress, and he was like texting at her, being like he wants to date her, and then like a bunch of people like retweeted it, and I don't know. There was something about it. Anna Kendrick. It was like Anthony
Mm.
Beauvillier had a crush on Anna Kendrick, and there was like a whole funny Twitter thread about it. And then she did respond, but she was like she's married or something, and it was everyone was like, ah, too bad.
Another tough break for Anthony.
Yeah. All right, so let's get out of the trades here. If anyone in the chat here wants to throw me a trade that they want us to talk about, we can definitely talk about it. But I've got some injuries to throw at you. Uh, Probably a potentially huge one in Vancouver. Thatcher Demko is injured. Like in the last game, Tocchet said. So Demko didn't return to the game. He left mid-game. Then after the game, Tocchet said, "I don't think it's too serious, but I don't know." So that like the first part was nice, and then that second part was like, "Oh, well, then that sucks." So I don't have a better update. Like, definitely you're going to want to be checking out. I don't know if Steve, if you know, I have this website, gamedaytweets.com, where all of our retweeting goes and gets organized there. So you can just go to the, mash reset on the Thatcher Demko page, or I should say refresh until like you see something new. But in the meantime, do we like advise for a Casey DeSmith like ad now just in case, or like would that even be risky? Like DeSmith hasn't been like too amazing, but Vancouver obviously is a really good team.
Yeah, it's tough to say. Like it depends on where you're sitting in terms of your, I guess, flexibility in goal. Like if I'm locked down with a really good tandem like the Carolina tandem, and then I've got like a legit number one like Ottinger, then where's your room to take a flyer like DeSmith?
Yeah. And like you could potentially get really burned. Like he's had, well, actually his last couple of games haven't been that bad. Before that, he had an 8 goals against game against Minnesota, and then after that, he got benched for like a million games in a row as punishment. But yeah, maybe if he gets it, obviously it's different being a backup who barely plays. Like Demko's such a volume guy, so there's a difference between being a backup that barely plays and like a guy now playing like a lot of games. So maybe DeSmith is one of these goalies that maybe thrives a little more. I'm trying to make the case for Casey DeSmith here that like maybe he thrives more with more games. So you shouldn't read too much into his like bad starts recently. So I mean, if Demko's hurt, you need a goalie. There's a guy, but we've mentioned some other goalies that potentially you can get Magnus Corona, you can get Montembeau potentially if you want to, but obviously better chance for wins with DeSmith. And then they
I
also have
still
this guy.
think Anthony Stolars is the best backup.
Okay. Well, I'm talking if you want to get some starts. But yeah, definitely as a backup then. If Bobrovsky got injured, I'd be with you 100% that you're rushing to get Stolars no matter what. I guess there's this guy, Arturs Silovs. Would he be the new backup in Vancouver if Demko was out? I think he's
Sounds
been
like it.
before. Yeah, so who knows if even that's the thing. Like if you jump onto Smith thinking he'll be volume, if he has a bad game, maybe they go to Silovs, and if he's good, then all of a sudden you don't even have a volume guy. So we'll have to watch and see. Another big injury, which seems to really be affecting the team badly, is Dylan Larkin is out for Detroit for a couple of weeks, and Detroit has all of a sudden really started losing a lot of games, and they haven't been too pretty. So I don't know, like. We could talk about beneficiaries of people who are like getting into good spots with Larkin out of the lineup, like who was playing with it was Comfer, Kane, and DeBrincat in that last game against Vegas. Perron with Kopp and Rasmussen. I don't know, like it's.
I think it's all
John's
negative.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like I think Dylan Larkin is Alex Lyon's courage, and now he's just the cowardly lion.
That's funny. Yeah, Lion, man, he killed me this week. I've been riding him for a while. I've been pumping him up on the podcast, being like, everyone's always talking about dropping Lion, and I'm like, why? He plays every game and he's been good. But yeah, definitely lately it's not been
Not
great.
without his courage.
Yeah, Robbie Fabry got on the top power play, but he had a power play goal like 3 games ago, but nothing since. So yeah, nothing too exciting. I don't have any like good scoops over on Detroit of like what to do with Larkin hurt, except for maybe drop Alex Lyon, like you said.
Well, no, hang on. Just don't play him until
Oh, I see.
like Larkin's until he gets his courage back.
Well, if you could afford to, yeah. If you're playing in a must-win matchup, you can't be burning a roster spot on a guy you're not playing.
Yeah.
Another big injury in terms of name value is Vince Dunn over in Seattle. I'm just bringing up to see if we have any latest updates here. Day to day. Okay, he's day to day according to Hackstall. That was from yesterday. So probably nothing to worry about too much.
But he also got crushed like an Oreo cookie. So like,
okay, well, who was it that? Oh yeah, it was like a play that the people were upset about, right?
yeah, I can't remember who hit him. It was violent.
Okay, I could find it. I'm gonna edit this, and then I'm gonna find it. Wait, sorry. But then it's gonna be awkward for anyone watching the video. Pospisil. That's it. Yeah, right there.
Oh, that's right.
Right, yeah, it was Pospisil on Calgary, and he got suspended for it. So we'll see who ends up missing more games between Dunn and Pospisil. But yeah, so in Dunn's absence, I will say in Seattle, if that's something you're interested in, if you want to get like a game or two from someone who's taking over with power play time, it's been Justin Schultz. Riker Evans for a while earlier this year got some top power play, but it was Justin Schultz in the last couple games. Not doing much with it. He scored a goal against Winnipeg. Doesn't take many shots. I'm never that interested in Justin Schultz. I remember I used to be interested in him like when he first started in Edmonton. That's like forever ago at this point.
Deep cut.
Yeah. What do you think about the goalie situation in Seattle? So Grubauer, since he's come back, well, first he didn't play for a million games. Then finally they gave Grubauer a shot. And now all of a sudden it seems like he's stolen the net from Decord. He's been so good. He finally had he had a 2-goal against game on 24 shots. That was like his worst game in the last little while. Like he's generally just putting up sterling save percentages game in, game out. Decord, unfortunately for him, has been then relegated to the bench. They did give Decord a second game in a row on Friday, which I was surprised about, but he lost. It wasn't that bad. Like it was 3-0 to Winnipeg. But yeah, I got to imagine at this point going into next week, they're going to be rolling Grubauer hard, I guess, until he falters like he always does.
Yeah, my sense with the Seattle goaltending is like, they're one of the last ditch type options. Like if you're in a league where you need volume, then yeah, Grubauer's going to be an option for you. But I'm just hoping that like against a really cushy matchup, spot starts and only when I need it. There's other goalie tandems that I'd rather be relying on.
Okay, yeah, we've talked about a lot of goalies on this episode, so hopefully we're giving people some options going into your fantasy playoffs. Here's another one that might be out there for you. Ilya Samsonov. You know, when Joseph Woll came back, it seemed like they'd go back to Woll being the starter because he was so much better than Samsonov. But Samsonov's been better over this past week. He just got the win over the Habs, letting only 2 goals on 31 shots. That followed up a win over Buffalo in his previous game. Meanwhile, Woll got 2 tougher games against the Sabres. 2 tougher games against the Bruins and didn't do too well in those games. So I guess things could change quickly. But Samsonov, if he's out there, he's been on a decent run for a while now. So maybe someone that could be interesting, kind of in the vein of a Casey DeSmith, in terms of like at least it's a team that you'd expect to win a lot of games. So there could potentially be a game where Samsonov doesn't play well but still gets you the win.
I think those goalies are going to trade starts the rest of the way.
Oh, I see.
Because they want to get like Wool needs games to get up to speed, and I don't think they trust either guy enough to go into the playoffs just riding one guy. So it's going to be like, I think they've been perfectly trading starts, and it might even just be random luck that Wool got the 2 starts against Boston, and they're just going back and forth.
Right. Okay. So then in that case, like Samsonov should owe Wool like buy him a present or something. It's like kind of, he gave Wool, like, I guess it was just luck how it turned out, but like Wool got a bad end of that deal. Now he's looking bad. But yeah, it could easily have been different probably just if they traded who got those starts in those games. So that'll definitely be something we need to watch going forward with those.
Yeah, maybe you can buy him a beanie buddy.
Yeah, okay, because everyone wants one of those. I should
Fudge the Moose.
Is that like a name that's similar to an actual Beanie Baby?
Well, it was Chocolate the Moose. Was
okay, sorry.
Was the amazing Beanie Baby, and so like Fudge is it.
I don't know. I get now.
It's a term for faking things.
Yeah, it was very good. I need to get up on my pop culture references, and then I'll be better for our next show.
Your especially dated ones.
Yeah. Now I'll know when you're coming on the podcast. I need to go and read some '90s history. But okay, I wanted to do a couple hot and cold streaks now to end the show. On Dallas, we've been talking about Logan Stankoven since he's come up. He's been awesome. We said that people should go at him. He's actually pointless in his last couple games. I'm still like really interested in him. Wyatt Johnston has been good. I think the player that Brian and I didn't mention that I really need to shout out at this point is like a person who, like, if Stankoven is so good and Johnston is so good, the guy playing with them is Jamie Benn, who was doing nothing for a long time, But Ben was also playing on the third line with like Johnston, but then usually like someone like a Sam Steele or whatever. So now they've got Stankoven in, who's like a real stud. But Ben also has been this whole time on the top power play. He was like a line 3 power play 1 guy, but now Ben's like on a line that's fun, and he's on the top power play. And now he's producing. He's got 8 points in his last 5 games. Pointless in the last game yesterday against LA, but before that, it was a really nice run. So if Ben is out there in free agency, you're sad you missed out on Stankoven. Maybe Ben's even better for the rest of this season just because of that power play.
Yes, supremely interesting option who's been very up and down. So like there's a very good chance that he got dumped because he just wasn't. I don't know, the whole team, like there's just so much offensive talent that like it's going to be very streaky. Like even their best players, you're like, well, I spent a first round pick on Jason Robertson and I'm not getting what I expected.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's been a little bit of a interesting ride. Well, like Robertson's kind of like been like a Tage Thompson. There's been more happiness with Robertson than Thompson, but yeah, Dallas, they're looking really good though. Like they're going to be definitely
they're
a big
so
force.
loaded.
Yeah, and then they have all these great young players. Also, they're going to be loaded for like a really long time. If they don't blow it, they should be one of the top teams for the next like 5-6 years, I guess, until they get into cap trouble and they have to figure some things out. But yeah, this is going to be an exciting team. And yeah, take a look at Jamie Benn. He might be out there for you. Okay, let's end on a cold streak. I like to end my conversations on like a down note. Over in Philly, last week, Brian and I were super high on Tyson Forrester. He was getting great deployment, and like Tortorella seemed to like him. And yeah, he was getting points, all the things that would cause us to talk about someone. Unfortunately, Forrester then went cold as soon as we really pumped him up. His last 3 games, 0 points. He had no points against St. Louis, but took 6 shots. But then in these last couple of games on Thursday, Saturday, pointless and only 1 shot against Florida, and then only 2 shots in the drubbing against the Lightning. Still good deployment, like still getting, like in the last game, well, I guess like Tortorella just went crazy in the last game because they were getting destroyed so much. So the lines changed a whole bunch of times. For a lot of the game, Forrester was playing with Konechny and Couturier and on the top power play. Is he someone that you would hold even though now he's cold, like expecting things to turn around, or do you think it was like he had his time and now you have to move on to someone else?
No, he's one of those players who fits into that I'll ride him when he's hot and drop him when he's not type circumstances.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what the lines are in the next game. How does it work? If the coach is suspended, Tortorella is suspended now for 2 games, does he still set the lines? Or is he like not even allowed to like give insight? Like if someone texts him, like what should the lines be? He has to be like, I'm not even allowed to say. It's up to you, assistant coach. I don't know who it is.
That is a great question. And if we were real insiders, we would have the answers for that. But because we're just speculating from afar, I'm going to lob a grenade and say that Tortorella is not allowed even in the building.
But I mean, I don't go to my work building too often, and I'm still a pretty critical part of the operation. It's 2024. You don't need to go in the building to give.
He's going to work remote. He's going to
he'll just sit at home, get on some Zooms, and tell everyone what to do. Is that if it's allowed? I don't know.
Do you think that he'll like be watching from the hotel room and then like call the assistant coach on FaceTime and have him
I'm curious.
Broadcast him to the referee and scream at him?
This is the information that our listeners came to us for, and unfortunately, we're letting them down. So I apologize that we don't have this information of how this will work out, but maybe someone will find this information out, tweet at us, and let us know so that we can share it with the world. But okay, I will say that if Forrester's still playing with like Konechny, like at even strength and on the power play, that's someone I'd be interested in, but obviously a little less now that
for sure
he's cold. But sometimes people go cold and then they go hot again. Like Tippett, by the way, is cold right now. He's pointless in his last 4 games.
He's been terrible for like 2 months.
He had a stretch recently. He's been taking a lot of shots. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's all he does.
Sometimes shots go in.
He's keeping the goalies warm.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So Tippett would be also someone that maybe is a tougher hold right now, but someone, if it was me, I'd probably hold on. But okay, Steve, this has been awesome. I could just keep throwing players at you forever. It's always a blast chatting, but I guess I've come to the end of my itinerary for our show here today. So thanks again for another sterling appearance on Keeping Karlsson. Any final words from you? And also, do you want to let people know if you have anything they want, or let people know if you have anything you want them to check out that you're working on.
I'm currently working on nothing, just getting ready for what promises to be another busy fire season.
Oh, I
So
hope
check.
not.
Well, it's it's up to Mother Nature.
Is it going to be the thing again where the air quality in Toronto is going to be bad because of fires from like Quebec or up north, and then I'm going to have to like not go outside some days?
It very well could be.
Ah, well, good luck. I hope that you can help make that not happen. I'd
We
be really
do our
excited.
best. We do our best.
They had a whole year, like all that happened. Now they've had a whole year to sort of prep for that. This is like me, I'm like the jerk at like the whatever, like doesn't know anything. I'm like, how come you didn't? And it's like I literally don't know how any of this works.
Yeah. Well, I
Having
mean,
a
like,
kid, it really sucked. I
yeah.
should just tell you, like we had like not being able to take your kid outside is like, what the heck am I supposed to do? What do
Oh,
I
they
do with this
need that.
person? I need that. I only
Yeah.
have so many like activities that I am capable of coming up with in this house. But
So
okay,
we
so good
played
luck to
patty
you.
cake for the 1,000th time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so definitely we're all wishing you the best of luck with that. And then, of course, good luck with all your fantasy leagues. Hopefully, do you have any that you are, have a shot at winning this year?
I've got a shot at winning all of them. I'm currently in first
Sweet.
place in 3 of them. Slated to come up on second place, like 4 points behind the number one team who I play in the final week of the regular season. So it should promise to be explosive. I'm hoping for a clean sweep of first place finishes in the regular season, and then get eliminated in the conference finals and have to trudge back down the mountain.
You're the Boston Bruins as of late.
Exactly.
Okay, well, definitely that's a reason for people to take some heed of the advice that you've given on this episode. Clearly, you know what you're talking about. So, yeah, thanks again for coming on. Thanks everyone for listening. Like I said, we're going to have some short shifts episodes coming up this week. If you missed it, I recorded a matchup maximizer yesterday, looking at next week's schedule. We looked a lot at the Jets, looked a lot at the Rangers, and you could listen to see what other teams are the teams you want to target. And I mentioned some players on each of them. But yeah, with that, let's cue the outro music. I'll just do a couple of more thanks here. Thanks so much to the Short Shifts team for all the work they've been doing, putting out those great episodes. Shams doing an amazing job on GameDayTweets.com, retweeting everything to make sure that we have all of our news that we need ready at our fingertips. Logo art by BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. Thanks for listening. See you on the next episode. Brian will be back, but we'll probably just talk about all the things that Steve said. Or no, I don't know. Brian will be back. And we're going to keep on going all the way until this season is over, trying to help you win your leagues. So until next time, I got to say the outro here. So Steve, ask me what we should do while we're waiting, like for the next episode, or like something along those lines, if you don't mind.
What should you do while you're waiting for the next episode?
Yeah, thanks for asking. You should continue to do everything you can to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone. See ya. That's usually like my line. Like I'm the one who asks it, and then Brian says that. So I just need
Turnabout is fair play.
Yeah, hopefully I did okay.
I
All
like
right, man.
that.
This was amazing.
No,
Thanks so
it's
much.
my pleasure.
Okay.
So yeah,
So
I
let's
have
try
to make
this.
sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna end the stream. So thanks everyone for watching, and then Steve and I will sit here awkwardly waiting for the file to upload because apparently he has to stay. I think that's what StreamYard tells me. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and yeah, we'll be back soon. Bye.